I figured, let's utilize the table a little
All
bit.
right, this is great.
All right. Are you ready, my dear?
I'm not. I just lost my stuff. I am ready, sir.
Holding up the thing.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Editing Academy. I'm Daryl.
I'm Laura.
Laura, what's the year and movies we're doing this time?
We are doing the movies of 1978. So these were all the films that were released between January 1st and December 31st, 1978. Nominated for Best Picture that was awarded in the spring of 1979.
Okay, and I'm going to do this.
Well done.
Yeah, no, it was horrible. Other notable films that year: Up in Smoke, Every Which Way But Loose, Halloween, The Boys from Brazil, Foul Play, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Grease, Superman, The Last Waltz, and Paradise Alley, which is Sylvester Stallone's next project he did after Rocky, back when he was actually acting.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a good film. At least I remember it being a good film.
Okay. I think same time next year was also that year, which was one of my favorite movies.
Okay, I didn't find that one, but that's totally fine. If you don't mind, though, I would like to do the films in a particular order this time.
Okay.
First, I would like to do Midnight Express because I just want to get it out of the way.
Okay.
All right.
Can I just make a statement about the movies of this year?
Oh yeah, it was depressing as all hell.
Oh my God, it was depressing.
You thought the year that we did Jaws was bad?
No. Nope. Okay.
All right, Midnight Express. It's a prison drama directed by Alan Parker, adapted by Oliver Stone, one of his early deals, from Billy Hayes' 1977 memoir of the same name. Stars Brad Davis, Irene Miracle, John Hurt, Bo Hopkins, Paul L. Smith, and Randy Quaid. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Screenplay, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score. It won for Score and Screenplay, and again, we're not saying which one won until the end for Best Picture. Fun facts. Did you find any about this?
I have changed the title for this particular year to just facts.
Okay.
Because there's nothing fun about any of these movies, but the facts are that based on a true story, the movie varied somewhat differently from the true story and book. So he did not actually end up killing the prison owner at the end.
Okay.
He did get in a consensual relationship with Eric, one of his co-prisoners. They did end up having a relationship, and he did not bite anybody's tongue off in real life. So that is the true facts.
All right. I'm just gonna be blunt with this one. This was a horrible movie.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy anything except for John Hurt for the few moments he was on screen, because John Hurt is always fantastic. Aside from that, this was crap. I'm surprised it was nominated. I'm surprised it was released. Like, there is nothing good about this movie.
I have been avoiding watching this movie for a long time because I knew about the subject matter, and good go past Laura for not ever watching this movie. And I'm sorry, current Laura has seen it. Why was it Best Picture?
Yes.
Why? There was nothing, like you said, there was nothing good about it. I thought the performances were over the top horrible.
Mm-hmm.
The subject matter was a guy went to prison and then he escaped. There was nothing, like, I didn't like the guy. I thought, yeah, he tried to smuggle hash. Life was probably far too long a sentence, but still. The only other part, John Hurt was great. The only other part is, I would say the first 15 minutes of the movie were actually very tense, and I thought, oh, this is going to go in an interesting way. When he was trying to smuggle and had it all wrapped up in the plane and trying to get on the plane, that was pretty tense and interesting. And then it went fully downhill.
Yes. This movie having little content, I agree with you. It seemed almost that this movie was just doing a criticism on the Turkish political system and prison system, rather than try to tell a story. Like, this should have been a bad documentary versus a bad drama.
Yes.
And some of the scenes are so incredibly over the top that I question why they made these choices. When he's in prison and the ex-girlfriend comes to see him, and he just starts to break down, and suddenly she whips out her breasts and puts them up against the glass.
Yes. Well,
Why?
he did ask her to.
But why?
I don't know.
What that came out of the blue. There was no relevance for it. There was he wasn't established as someone who liked to suckle. I mean, there was just nothing.
He had lost his mind, and apparently this was just a showing of how he has lost his mind, and she brought him back to reality in some way. which I didn't see that. I didn't see it coming.
Nope.
I thought it was unnecessary. The fight scenes were over the top,
Yep.
and him losing his mind was over the top. He wasn't a good actor.
No.
The girlfriend, was not a good actress.
No.
John Hurt was wonderful. Randy Quaid was fine.
He was different than we've seen him
Yes.
before, and vastly different than what we see him do
Yes.
later.
So he was fine.
Yeah, and I was actually kind of impressed. I'm like, all right, you're showing a little bit of range in your early career. Not great depth, but a little bit of range. So
Yes.
good on you. No problem.
No, any one of those other movies that came out this year that you just listed could have and should have been nominated for Best Picture
Over this one, absolutely.
Yep.
The some of this, I think, was Alan Parker really worshiping at the feet of Francis Ford Coppola, because it did have at certain moments like Godfather-like feel to it. Like
Really?
the wedding when they were doing, like it just felt kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm just.
Maybe I am with you. I think it was a criticism of the Turkish
Yep.
political system, and aren't we lucky to maybe it was an opposite to all of the anti-Vietnam movies of aren't we lucky to be American and not being stuck in a foreign prison.
Possibly, and I'll give that to you because that's better than the alternative. But like these were all conscious choices.
And
that
like,
they
am I
made.
supposed to like this guy? Because I didn't.
No, I didn't like anybody except
No.
for John Hurt. Like John Hurt was great.
Yeah.
I will give it minor props that there was a lot of attention to detail in scenes. Like the scenes
Okay.
that actually feel lived in. Like the prison cell felt lived in.
Yes, I agree.
So that was well established. That's it. Like.
And they also had a lot more freedom as prisoners. I know that they were not free, but then like prisoners that you see in a very small cell, like they had a home almost. It was very strange.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I have really nothing else to say about this movie. I had to unfortunately rent it, and I want my money back.
I want mine as well, and it is not on the AFI list. I forgot to mention that, and I know that's going to surprise you.
Shocker.
I know. I don't get it.
All right, so let's unless we want to just rip this apart further, we'll just move on to.
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah. Between the Midnight Cowboy and the Midnight Express, I'd watch Midnight Cowboy again.
Yeah,
10 times
yes.
over. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Coming Home.
Okay.
Coming Home, directed by Hal Ashby, from a screenplay written by Waldo Salt and Robert C. Jones, with story adaptation by Nancy Dowd, stars Jane Fonda, Jon Voight, Bruce Dern, Penelope Milford, Robert Carradine, and Robert Ginty. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Screenplay, Best Editing, and it won for Screenplay Actress, and Jane Fonda got her first Academy, and Best Actor for Jon Voight. This, I think, is second at this point, right? Because didn't he win for Midnight Cowboy?
Yes, he did. You're right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, facts.
So first of all, this is not on the AFI list
Okay.
either. So two facts to bring up. One of which was the very first scene where Jon Voight is playing pool with a bunch of other people in the hospital. Those are all actual Vietnam vets, not
I kinda
actors.
suspected, yeah.
And it was supposed he was given the direction to jump in and tell his character's story, and Jon Voight did not. He thought out of respect he should let everyone else tell their stories. They were the real vets. So I thought that was an interesting choice. And also, this was created by Jane Fonda. It was her production company,
Oh, really?
and it was her friendship with Ron Kovac, who is born on the 4th of July,
Yep.
that she wanted to tell this story after having talked to him and heard his story. So it's a fictionalized story
Right.
of his real story that we would be hearing later.
Okay.
So it was her production company that got this off the ground.
I will say, going into this one, that I was, out of all the films, this was the one I was looking forward to watching the most,
Mhm.
because it's Hal Ashby,
Yeah.
who does two just amazing films in Being There and Harold and Maude.
Yes, that's
Two-
true.
Two fantastic movies. He likes to just kind of sit in moments and let things breathe and be.
Yep.
This movie was the same, and I don't know if it was me, the subject matter, I'm not sure, but I just couldn't latch onto this at any point in time.
Okay.
That's most likely me. I tried to put myself in it, I really did. Jon Voight's character in the beginning, when he's just so angry at everybody,
Mm-hmm.
I got, but I thought it was way overplayed.
Mm-hmm.
They could have pulled that back a little bit. So I struggled with this one, and I was disappointed in myself that I was struggling, because I wanted to like this so much.
I have seen it before,
Okay.
and And I saw it when I was much, much younger, and I remember liking it, but not loving it, so it was nice to revisit it. I thought it was a really beautiful movie, that it was very sad, and it had a great story, and this is one of those movies we talked about where the actor sells it or doesn't sell it.
Yep.
And I'm not a Jon Voight fan, and I thought he sold it.
Okay.
I actually really enjoyed his performance. I thought that, maybe the second half was much better, warmer, like you got to see who he was as a person. I thought his monologue at the high school was amazing. I thought his interplay with Bruce Dern was really interesting. Like,
Yep.
he felt bad for making life harder on Bruce Dern. He wanted to make a connection with him. I thought he was trying to humanize Bruce Dern, who I hated that character.
He was kind of one note, and I think it was
yes.
supposed to be.
He was absolutely one note, and they didn't do anything. And I think that the end we were supposed to humanize him, and all it did was humanize Jon Voight more for me, the way that he tried to understand him and see what he was going through. So I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. There wasn't anything that it was a very emotional story, and I didn't feel that, but also I don't know that in '78 I might have felt more emotionally tied to that.
3 years after pulling out of Saigon,
Of course,
this is all very fresh and new for folks, so I can see people resonating with this at a much deeper level than we can, being so distanced from it.
Yeah.
I'd like to go on a little bit of a rant, if you don't mind.
All right, go for it.
Because my struggle with this one, when I was just not latching on and not getting it is the wrong term, but not feeling the way I was hoping to feel watching this, I started to really think about what 1970s movies were.
Mm-hmm.
And I've struggled with a lot of them, and I kind of figured out, I think, why.
Okay.
So, the movies in the 1970s, I had to write a lot of down so I wouldn't forget. They try to tell very complex stories and take on a lot, but they root it in just normal, average, everyday situations. And for the artistry at the time, I do remember reading that was kind of what they were trying to do. They wanted to show the artistry and the art and the drama in just everyday experiences in everyday life, putting on top of them some extreme things like coming back from Vietnam and things like that.
Okay.
But if you think about a lot of the movies that we watched, a lot of those quieter movies, that's exactly what they do. And a lot of these movies this year do that as well. They just are normal people going through normal kind of events with something every once in a while put on top of it. But they're just average. These are not big budget action movies.
Right.
These are not even like, soul searching kind of things. These are just a lot of directors putting characters and a lot of writers just putting characters in normal situations and letting the audience experience that as the art, because average everyday life is actually art.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what a lot of these movies in the 70s are doing, and that's why I struggle with some of them, because I don't go to the movies or watch movies to see the everyday.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Movies to me, they can be deep, meaningful, impactful, strictly fun. They can be, amazing action movies like a John Wick that's no plot, but it's just fun to watch.
Yep.
Movies, for me, when they just reflect everyday life, I just don't connect with it as much as something else that's trying to tackle more than just beauty in the everyday. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, and one of the ones we've enjoyed the most has been Towering Inferno, which was a total popcorn movie, and we both enjoyed that tremendously. I've definitely struggled with this movie and some of the others in the 70s, but I think I've enjoyed them a little bit more because I am such a character person.
Sure.
Like, if you show me an interesting character, and like in this movie, Jon Voight was certainly the most interesting character, but it wasn't that interesting. It was a couple who were married, who were a very 50s couple, who he goes off to war, and there's a lot of emancipation kind of in these movies. We'll talk about that in a minute. But she gets kind of, a little more freedom. She has an affair. That's the story.
Right.
It's basically a married couple who somebody has an affair, and very similar to another one we're going to discuss. But you're right. It is, do I care about the characters? And sometimes in the smaller movies, they do get more character arc and character depth that I enjoy. These did not, because of the complexity, because it became about the Vietnam War instead of about this couple.
And don't get me wrong, a good character can make or break a movie, 100%. And if it's a good character, an interesting character, one I can attach to, I'm in for the ride no matter what.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these films in the 70s that we're seeing, while they're trying to give their characters depth, they're not giving them as much as they can, because they're just, well, this is how this person is. It's an average human being going through this event. So they don't give them that little bit extra a lot of times. Like, think of when we did 5 Easy Pieces, right?
Yes.
With Jack Nicholson.
Perfect example.
It's a character study all the way through. And Jack was phenomenal in the movie, I thought. But the story itself was just...
You need both.
Yeah, it just wasn't there. And we're seeing that a lot in these 70s movies, where their characters are just themselves and you don't get a lot from them. If you do, then the movie carries. If you don't, then it doesn't, and it falls apart.
Well, of these 3 people, none of them were interesting.
Right.
Jane Fonda's character, I didn't think she did that great a job, and I wasn't that interested in her or her character.
Yep.
Bruce Dern's character was very one note. And even John Voight, he was, you know, the captain of the football team who went to Vietnam and became disabled, became an angry vet. Like, that was his character. Who was he? We really never learned.
No.
You know, he was a caricature.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So,
interesting.
this one, like I said, I kind of struggled through. It's very well shot.
Yep.
The directorial choices that they made in the framing and even the lengths of scenes, I thought was straight up Hal Ashby. They were near perfect.
Yeah.
Again, I just like being rooted in something so average and so normal. I couldn't get into it, and I know that's a me fallacy, and that's a preference that I have. But I just wanted to acknowledge that and talk about that, because this kept coming up.
No, that's fair. And I think that one of the problems with this movie for me, and it is very much a me problem, was this is the last I watched in the batch. And I think I was just done in with heavy topics, honestly. And so had I started with this one, maybe I would have captured a little bit more interest. But it was a good movie. I see why it was nominated for Best Picture.
Sure.
I see why Jon Voight got it. I see less why Jane Fonda got it, but it's worth watching.
One scene that I will talk about, and then we can move on if you want. The scene where the brother commits suicide.
Yes.
That, because I knew exactly once he held that needle, and of course, as always, spoilers, but you've already seen the message. When he saw the needle and nothing in it, I knew exactly what was going to happen and how he was going to do it. And then watching him do it, and it takes a while for that bubble to travel.
It was like awful.
I was tense the entire time until he did his spasm, and I was like, okay, good, that's over. I'm sorry you died. That's a horrible way to go. But,
awful.
So that was effective.
It was, and I actually really liked her friend. I thought she had a lot of character.
Yep.
So, one of the lines took me out of the movie because it was just so horrible and appropriate for the time. Was Jane Fonda said something about her friend who wanted to get married. She said to the guy who was her boyfriend at the time, basically, well, you know, women and dogs, you need a license to show ownership. And I was like, wow. But also in the time, like, that was an interesting take, and took me out of the moment for a moment, but it was appropriate for the movie and the moment.
The 70s.
The 70s.
Okay, so those are the 2 that I wanted to do, because I wanted to first get the first one out of the way, and then second use this one as a springboard for my little diatribe there, so thank you for indulging.
Anytime.
You can choose next.
Let's keep going with the whole thoughts of small movies, small moments, and Unmarried Woman.
All right. An Unmarried Woman, written and directed by Paul Mazursky, starring Jill Clayburgh, Alan Bates, Michael Murphy, Cliff Gorman. The film was nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Written Screenplay, and Best Actress. That was Clayburgh. It didn't win anything, but that's okay. Facts, and I'm going to guess one of the facts.
Okay.
That you're going to do a Gilmore Girls reference.
I was not going to do a Gilmore Girls reference. Bring it on. Oh, well, it's Emily Gilmore. It's one of her friends.
Yes.
Oh, I just thought we would all know that, so I didn't need to do an Elvis.
Not everybody has seen the
Really?
Gilmore Girls.
Okay, all right. I did not know that. So,
okay, facts.
Cameos, though. I'm going to go to cameos, which are Jill Eikenberry and Michael Tucker, who were the married couple on LA Law and are married in real life. Were the couple that saw her at the Chinese restaurant and said hello to her. So they were married a couple of years before that. They are still married, so they're going on 50-something years.
Good
Go
for them.
You. And I think they're adorable. And another cameo is that obnoxious guy in the Chinese restaurant that was her friend's boyfriend, Hal, is Paul Mazursky.
Oh, the director.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So just a couple of sorry. I just assume everyone knows Gilmore Girls, and I've stopped doing my soap opera references. Although
feel free, keep going.
When we get to Close Encounters, we'll chat.
Okay.
Okay.
This one was probably outside of no, I scratch all of that. I fucking loved this movie. I loved
Really?
this movie so much. I was surprised at how well
Fascinating.
I loved
Okay.
this movie. But I think primarily because it was so woman-centric that everything else kind of fell apart, and all the other movies are very guy-heavy.
Mm-hmm.
That it was a nice little refreshing pace. I thought the subject matter was handled beautifully. I thought everybody was up to par in this. She is amazing throughout this entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they do close-ups on her face and she's going through a range of emotions, she handles that beautifully.
All right.
She was able to take the happiness, the despair, the questioning, and she just seems like the way she portrays this character, she just seems like she would be a cool lady to hang out with, you know?
Mhm.
Like she just has a perspective that you kind of want to bounce things off of. I fell in love with this movie.
Okay, so my comment is, who boy was this written by a man? So, basically, I liked her. I liked her performance. I got a lot of like very specific things, but just the very, a couple of her kind of like dancing around in her underwear.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't
yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
The guy going to her, you are such a very complicated woman, and then jumping on her. Like, I don't know that it goes from that statement to the next. Certainly, unwanted passes and getting jumped on in a taxi was actually very realistic. But just you're such a very complicated woman. I don't know that women get that a lot. Maybe I'm just not complicated. I don't know. But I did like her friendships and her female friendships that she leaned on. But the women were characters. You had the shrew, you had the cougar,
Yeah.
you had the kind of dumpy man guy, kind of. So like all of them had their roles, and so it struck me as a little too caricature driven.
I will say that when I went back, because I as I was watching this, I'm obviously a guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a female. So there are certain sensibilities that I will just never be able to get. And I thought, after watching it, I went back and I was like, that was written by a guy. I wonder if I'm missing something. Because if it had been done by a female, I think I would have had less hesitation. I'm not backing down from anything.
No, totally.
But
I enjoyed it as well.
that did give me a little bit of a pause.
Yeah.
You're correct. There are 3 scenes where it just goes on far too long.
Yeah.
The scene where she's dancing around in the room. Okay. The fact that she was in her underwear, sure, you're gonna walk around the house in your underwear.
That's actually realistic.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But
Yeah.
that scene went on for what seemed
Yes.
like 5 minutes. It was probably like 2.5.
Right.
But way too long. That could have
Yeah.
been a 30-second scene. Cut it.
Yeah.
The ice skating scene, again, way too
Yeah.
long. And then the scene at the end where she's carrying the poster down. And I get it, that one was supposed to be intentionally long so they could roll credits.
Right.
But still, way
Too long. Yeah.
I did like that they did not shy away from female topics and let them speak. Like when they're talking about masturbation or just men in general.
Yep.
Like it seems to me that they were given proper voice, and that I could see those conversations being real that people would have.
That's true. I agree with that, and I did note that as being a real one. The ones that I thought were not necessarily real was her talking to her therapist about the first time she got her period. I mean, like that, for the most part, I'm not speaking for all women, but for the most part, that's not necessarily a therapy session. It's very big and important in the moment,
Sure.
but then you go about your life. And one of her friends asked her, "Oh, are you getting your period today?" Literally no woman would ever say that to another woman, ever, or they, get their card pulled. But
That, by the way, that therapist is a real life therapist who
I
was
saw that,
apparently
yeah.
super popular at the
Mhm.
time, wrote a couple books and everything.
Yep, I agree with that.
I thought that, I agree with you, that was an awkward scene, and I was like, I don't think, unless it was traumatic, I don't think this would be something you bring it up in therapy.
Exactly, because it wasn't traumatic. It was, woohoo, finally got it. Isn't
Yeah.
that great? And also, again, now she's 20 years out from that moment. So that seems a bit odd. She was married for 16 years, I guess.
Something like that. In the
Yeah,
movie,
she was quite young, I think. Cause she was in her early 30s in the movie, so
Yeah.
I think she played a little bit young. I didn't like the act. I thought her acting was spectacular. I did not like her husband. That I thought
Yeah.
he's like hysterically crying on the street and that kind of thing. It just didn't seem realistic. But the fact that he cried when he told her and he felt bad about leaving, and I agree with the emotions, but not the way he performed it.
Got it.
So,
What did you think about the artist? Because it made sense to me eventually, but he latches onto her so quickly.
yeah,
And that seemed a little rushed, but then he was consistent in his desire for her and his constant praise of her.
yeah.
So then the beginning I kind of forgave that it was so quick, because to me I just chalked that up as like this was a love at first sight for him. He just saw this one, was like, she's amazing, I want her, and then was consistent throughout.
I totally agree, and I was actually surprised she didn't go with him. So I liked him. I actually liked her relationship with Charlie. It was, she's like, I need to get over this hurdle. I need to be with somebody other than my husband. And Charlie, you're here and we know each other.
So a lot of this I could see ringing true, and not being a woman, you'll have to let me know.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
A big part of this movie is her just trying to figure herself out.
Yes.
Post-divorce. Who is she? What does she want? And part of that is obviously sexual exploration.
Yes.
Do you think that the scenes, like when she has sex with Charlie, it's less like, I know you're going to be good at it, let's just do this, get it over with, and then she basically walks away from him. The relationship that she ends up having with the artist is one that develops over time, but they fall very quickly into bed, and in fact she says to him, is like, I wanted to know what it felt like to have sex with somebody I didn't care for, or words to that effect. And then he asked, well, how was it? And she's like, kind of empty. And so
those were realistic, and I did not think those were gender specific. So I thought that they handled those pretty well.
So that's my big question is the exploration, her exploring her own sexuality, was that handled well or not?
I thought it was handled well, and I did not think that was one of the places where I was worried about a man writing or directing it.
Okay.
With me, it was a little bit more about the dialogue and her day-to-day life. I think that it would have helped to have a female co-writer or something along those lines.
Or at least run it by a female.
Or at least have a female in your life and ask them some questions. But as far as her arc, I thought that was all fairly realistic. The thing that threw me off slightly was when the therapist was saying, have you been with anybody new? Have you had sex with anybody new? And she's like, well, no, he's only been gone 7 weeks. And the therapist is like, 7 weeks? That's a long time. I'm like, okay, so I just think that was interesting in the 70s, that it's like, he's been gone 7 weeks. You should be out there.
Talking to my father and my mother were divorced in right around this time, a big year or two earlier than when this film is set. And that was quite the common thing. Like, you get divorced, go find somebody else. Yeah.
Find somebody else, exactly. So you're right. I had to think back on that in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of what.
Because even the doctor, I mean, well, I want to talk about that scene as well. But even the doctor was like,
want to go get a drink?
Was it really as creepy as I remember it? Because I thought it started out where he was being genuine because he'd been friends with her and her doctor for so long.
Yes, it started genuine.
And then she kind of turns it to be like, this, you're asking me out. And I don't think, this was my interpretation, I don't think even he realized that he was actually asking her out until she pointed it out, and then he was like, well, hey.
That is exactly how I read it as well. Was he was just asking into, how's it going? And I am your friend and I'm concerned about you. And then, would you like to go get a drink? And she's like, well, you never asked me that when I was married.
Right.
And he realized that as well, and I don't think he realized it before. So I do agree with that. And it was that once she became known to be getting a divorce or separated, suddenly all the radars were on her. So it was good. I liked it. It was interesting. I had a really hard time finding it. You had to find a link for me to be able to even find it at all. But I did think that it was a little bit too skewed in some of the maybe non-important scenes that it seemed to be written by a guy.
Okay. I loved it. I had so much fun with it. I really did. And again, it was because it was so women-focused and so women-centric.
Which we have not seen a lot.
Correct. And all the men she is just utilizing for her, to try to figure herself out, which every other movie, that's completely reversed. They focus on the guy's using girls to try to figure himself out. And I liked that switch, and I thought it was handled well, and I'm glad you agreed for the most part.
I do.
Because otherwise I was going to be like, man, I just need to reevaluate.
No, I do agree for the most part, but I do think it's interesting, given what you just said about the small movies and the real life not connecting with you. And yet this is a small movie about a small piece of someone's life.
But this is exactly my point. when it works, when you have a decent
Okay.
character and you can root them and you can follow a journey,
Yeah.
and the writing is up to a level where it's not just all seeming like one notes or relying on tropes
Yeah.
and stereotypes, which I don't think this did. And she was able to bring this performance of a woman going through this circumstance
Yeah.
tremendously. And also it helped that the things she was bouncing off were interesting. Like, she was constantly going to pretty decent social affairs, you know?
Yes.
So it wasn't like she was just going over to her neighbor's house and having a cup of tea. Like,
True.
there were events where she could actually show who the character was and what she was going through. So this one 100% works.
Good point. And difference between the Jane Fonda role, where you don't know anything about her,
Right.
and Jill Clayburgh, you know that she loves music and she loves dance and she's getting tickets to the ballet and she has these friends who she meets with once a week because they're so important to her, and like all of these things that you learn and know about her that give her depth that you didn't get in the prior movie.
Correct.
Okay, agreed.
Okay, so yeah, I was very surprised by this one.
Okay,
What's next?
let's do Heaven Can Wait.
Oh God, alright. Heaven Can Wait, directed by Warren Beatty and Buck Henry, starring Warren Beatty, Julie Christie, James Mason, Charles Grodin, Diane Cannon, Buck Henry, Vince Gardenia, and Jack Warden. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, and it won for Art Direction. Go with the facts.
Okay, so not on the AFI list.
Yeah.
And the fun fact is, Warren Beatty originally wanted this to star Muhammad Ali and be
Oh.
about a boxer, but Muhammad Ali did not want to give up boxing. So he decided to take on the main role and made it about a football player.
Okay.
Because it was a remake from a movie in the 30s, I believe, and it was
okay.
about a boxer.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this was the quote-unquote comedy of the bunch.
Yes.
I thought it failed a lot in trying to be a comedy.
Okay.
I thought there were moments, but for the most part, I was just, I can't wait for this movie to end.
I was so bored.
Yeah.
I was so bored. The one comment I want to make, and I'd be interested in your thoughts, are the top tier characters I couldn't have cared less about. Warren Beatty and Julie Christie, I just didn't really
I
care
thought
about
she was
them.
great.
Really?
Like, I thought, well, her character was horrible, but I thought
Right.
her portrayal of that character was phenomenal.
She didn't have a lot to work with.
No, she didn't, and I think she did a really good job with not having a lot to work with.
Maybe so.
Okay.
She just didn't speak to me. But I will say the second tier characters, Diane Cannon and Charles Grodin, I thought were funny. Like, they were the one bright spots in it. They understood the assignment.
Yeah.
They knew what they were supposed to do. They were funny. I like what's his name, Jack Warden and James Mason. I thought, again, they knew what they were supposed to do. I thought they were interesting characters. It was really, for me, and more Warren Beatty than Julie Christie, because she didn't have a lot to do, just failed.
Yeah.
I thought he was boring and lackluster and did not have the charisma that he is known for.
Yeah, his character was supposed to be the, like, kind of the one that you're following and having fun with through this adventure.
Yeah.
And it was just, he did not portray fun at all.
Yes, exactly.
No fun. The opening of this one, you know how much I like an opening? I was like, I get it, but I don't care. Like,
But he was jogging,
Yeah.
and he was making power shakes. Isn't that exciting?
No, I mean, I get it. We're rooted in your regiment. You're really dedicated
Yeah.
to all of this. That's fine. That's clearly established. Thanks. Move on and die. Oh, you didn't actually die. You got pulled instead. Okay, what a twist. I did.
How about, is it, one of the things, maybe it bothered me less about Julie Christie, more about the romance of, they met twice, and then he proposed to her, and she said yes, and then he died, and the date he died, she meets this other guy, it's like, hey, let's go out for coffee. Okay. It's like, what was that?
All of the actual quote-unquote relationships in this one were not believable to me.
At all.
The reason he stays in the body is because he meets the lady
Yes.
and has a crush on her, wants to help her, and they were like, hey, we got your body, you ready to go and do the thing you've been talking about forever, and the thing you really want to do with your life? No, because I just met this person.
And we met twice, and I just proposed to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't buy it, didn't
No.
make sense to me. I mean,
They had some
Plot-
chemistry.
plot-wise, sure, it needed to be there
Yes.
to force him to stay, but
Yeah.
I didn't buy it, it wasn't believable, they
Yeah.
didn't sell it. Yeah, I had problems with this.
I didn't care for it at all. It was just it was a fluffy movie. It was actually kind of a cute premise, but they did not execute on it in the way I would want them
No.
to. Yeah.
The similar premise, like the afterlife, coming back, whatever, defending your life.
So much better. Yes, I agree with that. Oh, and I did like the music. I thought it was cute little boppy music. So it made this all like, this is just fluffy, don't forget. So like, all right, that was cute.
Yeah, I didn't buy it. They didn't sell the premise heavily enough. It didn't work. James Grodin was James Grodin, and he's always James Grodin.
He's
and
great.
He's
Diane Cannon, hilarious.
100% character actor, plays the same character
Yes.
in everything he ever does, but everything he ever does demands that character be there.
Yes.
So it works, and it's totally fine. Everything else I didn't care about. Like, I could not wait for this movie to be over.
The thing that bothered me was, again, this was a very heavy slate.
Yeah.
This was the funny, comedic
Yeah.
palate cleanser.
Yeah, and it didn't.
It failed. It failed miserably. Yeah. Yep.
So I have nothing else to say about this.
Nope.
All right.
Diane Cannon, loved her. That's my comment. Okay.
Moving on to, I think this is the last one, Deer Hunter. Co-written and directed by Michael Camino, I might be mispronouncing the name, I apologize. Based in part on an unproduced screenplay called The Man Who Came to Play by Louis Garfinkel and Quinn K. Redeker, about the Las Vegas and Russian roulette, which I thought that was interesting. Producer Michael Dealey, so there's a point to doing all this. Producer Michael Dealey, who bought the script, hired Camino, who with Derek Washburn rewrote it then, taking the Russian roulette element out and placing it in the Vietnam War. So that was kind of the premise on how this all came to be. Stars Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, John Savage, with John Cazale in his final role, unfortunately, Meryl Streep, George DeZunda, and supporting roles. Nominated for a ton of stuff. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, and Best Sound. It won for Sound, Editing, Supporting Actor, Christopher Walken, and Best Director for Camino.
Did Meryl Streep not win?
She didn't.
Oh, okay. It was her first nomination then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the film, she made her debut role in the film they couldn't watch last time, Julia.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. This is on the AFI Best Movie list. It is currently number 53, and in the update that they had, it was number 79 on the original list. So it has moved quite a bit up. Yeah. And there's nothing fun about any of the facts of this movie. So here's a fact, which is that Chuck Aspegren, who played Axel, was an actual steelworker.
Oh, okay.
Apparently Christopher Walken and Robert De Niro were out doing kind of just like set visits and checking things out and looking at mills, met this guy in a bar, thought he was super funny and gregarious, introduced him to the director, and they cast him as Axel. So he did a couple of other parts, but then he just kind of went home and did
cool.
his steel building thing.
That's not bad to say, like,
Yeah.
hey, I was in a movie.
Yeah.
Really? Which one? Deer Hunter.
Yeah,
No
he was
shit.
plant foreman for the U.S. Steel in Gary, Indiana.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Okay, so this is a very long movie.
Yes.
This is a very 70s movie in that you sit with things for a long period of time. My first comment, and then I'll justify this, is this movie could have benefited from some editing. It is too long. It's a phenomenal movie, but it is too long. There are so many things that could have been cut down. The wedding scene, which takes up 25 minutes, could have been done in 10 or 15. You did not need that much rooting in how well these people know each other.
Was that where they were trying to be like The Godfather? Do you think?
No, I mean, the other movie was the one that I was referencing.
I know, but I'm wondering, like in this one, where it had such a long wedding scene, if they were trying to kind of mimic The Godfather's wedding scene a bit.
It could be, but it was unnecessary. Like
Totally
if you had other things that were happening and moving through that had to happen during the wedding, but it was just a wedding.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the wedding scene was to show how close knit this town is and how close knit all these people are. That could have been done in 10, 15 minutes easy.
Exactly.
It did not need to go on for as long as it did. And there are a lot of moments that there's too much. The scene when they're on the side of the road before they go off and start hunting.
Oh, yeah.
Uncomfortably long. And I get, again, what they're trying to do is build how close these four are together and show their individual personalities, because that matters for what happens next.
Yeah.
But again, too long. Like, I got the relationship pretty quickly.
Yeah. Agreed.
So yes, it could have benefited from some editing.
So I have never seen this movie before.
Really?
I've never seen it before because I knew a lot about it and I knew the subject matter and I had seen some scenes and kind of overall it was a tough movie to get
It
through.
is.
It is a very good movie and well-made movie. It is far too long. I agree with you. There are some scenes and some scenes when they were prisoners in Vietnam of I'm understanding how brutal this is. I understand what they are going through. I don't need to see and feel it as long as they had me see and feel it. So I think the same, kind of the same comments there. I loved a few moments, like talking about them sitting on the side of the road, and this could have been much shorter, but it showed how serious Michael was.
Oh yeah.
He was all dressed, he was done, he had his stuff, and he was really ticked off somebody wanted his boots, because he was ready, he was prepared, this was serious business. And so I really liked how they did set up some of the characters. I thought also the other thing, I've got a whole piece on Meryl Streep I want to talk about, but just starting with how lovely she was. I mean, like, she has always been a very striking woman. She's still a very beautiful woman, but so pretty when she was so young.
There's a certain, and it's not just the way they filmed it. She does have a certain glow about her.
Yes, she really does. I love the scene when Michael leaves. She's pissed. Like, you see her face. She says not a word, and she is just absolutely pissed. And also, you know that her character is kind of gets around a little bit, and I liked that for her. Like, she's a small town girl living in a lonely world. So I did not mean to go there, but that just happened.
Hey, a little journey here and there is fun.
But she's got a rough life. She has a rough father. Exactly. Christopher Walken and then Robert De Niro, and she is making do any way she can, and I like that about her. So I really liked her character. And we didn't know a lot about her, but in the moments we got from her in this very, very long movie, we got moments about her, and I thought they were amazing.
Yeah, she was able to carry a lot.
Yes.
Without much. Like, she becomes memorable, even though, in all honesty, she's probably only on the screen for 20, maybe 25 minutes of this 2.5, 3 hour movie.
Exactly.
But she is completely memorable for the times that she is there, and her character serves an important function because the conflict and the love and all of that, and she handles that assignment beautifully. She did exactly what she was supposed to do and brought something else to it at the same time. Like, a lot of actors were like, okay, this is what you need me to do, great, do it, and it's fantastic. But she always just brings a little bit something more so you can dive in a little bit deeper. There's a reason she's the most nominated person of all time.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. What else do you have to say?
So it's essentially a couple different movies. We have the establishment of how they live, and then that all gets taken away when they go to Vietnam, which is an abrupt change. I was fine with that.
Yeah.
What I wasn't fine with was, so you cut to the helicopter and you see Michael out there, like, lying next to some dead bodies. He goes and kills the Viet Cong who's hurting people, and then suddenly his two friends show up, just like, hey, Michael, where were you? Where have you been? What's going on? I was like, that's a plot point that is way too convenient.
It is not realistic. They all would have been in the same place at the same time. Yeah, I agree with that. So that one bothered me a little bit. But then the scenes that they're actually doing, particularly the three that are still left, everybody has a very different role. One is completely terrified. Just the sound of the gun sends him off in a tizzy. He did beautifully portraying that. Robert De Niro playing Michael, the one that had to get everybody through. He was basically in charge and took it on his shoulders to get everybody out. Took that 100% seriously and nailed it. Christopher Walken's character was a little bit more loose and just like not really knowing what to do and how to feel and how to act. He nailed that indecisiveness very well. So I thought those scenes were handled beautifully. Then they all come back, and it's another movie now, so it's a reunion movie, but where's... all of them.
And then we have to go find him, we go back and we see. So it tackled a lot, and it handled all of it perfectly well, far above average than a lot of other films. It was just too long. Way too long.
It's interesting the way you're setting them up and how they each responded to the Russian roulette, experience was who they were in the wedding scene and who they were at the mill and who they were when they were deer hunting and who they were at the end as well. So you're right, like that, it just so clearly encapsulated who they were, but you saw that on both ends of the movie too.
And like it's a lot easier to identify during those scenes because of the setup from the beginning. So they don't have to spend a ton of time on it, like, because I guarantee there's probably more footage where he was like, no, but we really need to see Michael doing this, and we really need to, and it's like, see, that one was a fine length for me to get everything established.
Yeah.
If they could have done that in the beginning and edited down the beginning and even the end a little bit,
Yeah.
It would have been a much tighter movie, and I think it would be a better movie for that. This is a phenomenal movie. Don't get me wrong, but it can be
just
better.
a little tighter. Just a little tighter. So speaking of the end, do you want to talk about the very end?
Sure.
And
How abrupt it is.
well, how abrupt it is, but also, so I read a little bit about it before I ever saw the movie about the singing of God Bless America and like what that means and why they're doing it. Is it patriotic? Is it ironic? And so I'm just going to give you my take, and I would love to hear yours. Is one of the things I read about it is it's neither. It is community. It is a communal moment where they're kind of all together, and it reminded me, so lapsed Catholic that I am, it reminded me of, you know those hymns, those songs, and when you go to a wedding or when you go to a funeral, there is such comfort in singing the same hymns and the same songs. You may not believe in the subject matter in the way that you did when you were young or the way that you did before they went through this kind of experience, but being together as a community, singing a song you all knew, that's what I took away from it, and I thought it was a very beautiful moment of community.
I 100% agree. I don't think it was either patriotic or anything along the lines. It is just, we're all just coming together in a very sad moment, and when someone starts a song like that, if you are feeling that, then everybody's just going to come in.
Exactly.
Whether you're feeling patriotic as you're singing, or if you're just singing it because your friends are. So I agree 100%.
Yeah, and I did think it was very abrupt ending. I'm like, oh, we're done now? Okay.
Yeah, and the abruptness is pretty bang, 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 because once he finds him playing, he's almost talked him out of it, and then he shoots himself and he dies. That's abrupt, and he's like, there's like 30 seconds of crying, cut to
the funeral.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cut to singing.
After. Yep.
And we're done. And I was like, okay, I get that, but I think that the ending, I think, could have been handled better and differently. I don't know how.
When you had a 25-minute wedding scene,
right,
and the funeral is literally, if I remember correctly, them just coming out of the church, right?
I think so, yeah.
Did we see anything of the funeral itself?
I don't remember. I
don't think we did.
It being like at the funeral plot. I don't remember that.
Right. So I think it was just them coming out of the church kind of thing. Maybe we saw some hymns. I don't remember. But anyway, very minimal. There was no eulogy. There was no anything that I can remember.
Yeah, it was abrupt. And that took me back because, again, spending so much time with everything else, you'd figure that the director would choose to spend time with this one as well. But now he's like, okay, we're clocking in at 2 hours 45. We got to wrap this one up, people.
Exactly. Let's make it happen. So, what happens after this movie? Like, what happens the next day? Does Michael and Meryl Streep get together?
They do.
They
It
all
fails.
go off their own directions.
Yeah, they do. It's probably, my estimation would be, it would be a very short-lived affair.
Yeah.
Like something they both wanted to have happen, and it happened, and then they realized, yeah, this is not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as everybody else, I think if Michael is not there, then the crew kind of falls apart because he is the glue that kind of keeps everybody and allows everybody to be themselves. He's the center of it. So if he's not there, it all just falls apart. And they'll have, they'll get together 25 years from now when one of them dies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he leaves town and they all fall apart. Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
All right.
Yeah, so that's all I had about that. This was, unfortunately, I watched this like 6 months ago before we decided to do this podcast.
Okay.
And the only reason I did is because I remember liking this. I wonder if I still will. And then I watched it, and then I was like, I do, but.
It's a great movie. It is a very well done movie. It would have been better half an hour shorter.
Yeah, it definitely benefited from some editing. Okay.
So Daryl, did the Academy get it right or wrong?
Would you like to take a guess?
Oh wait, we have to tell them who won first.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. Go for it.
All right. The Deer Hunter won Best Picture.
There you go. So would you like to take a guess?
I think you agree.
I do agree. Given the choices, this was by far the best film. It was not the one, as clearly everybody can tell now that I latched onto the most. But this is like a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest situation. It's so incredibly well crafted. Again, it's some editing, but it's just masterfully done. Far better than any of the other films that were made.
And this is a movie that people will rewatch because yes, the Vietnam and the Russian roulette is very specific to its time, but this is hometown friends
Yeah.
who have a horrible experience together. It is a little bit of a timeless story.
Yep.
So yes, I also agree. Deer Hunter was the best picture. Nice.
All right. Not another active fight. Good job.
There you go.
All right. So yeah, do the liking, subscribing, all that good kind of fun stuff. And
Watch, like, don't surprise, subscribe.
suddenly there's a knock on your door.
Surprise.